Hello everyone and welcome to the Debriefing the SAMR and 4Cs activity. Over the next few minutes we're going to look at the 5 lessons that you analyzed and see where they fall in the SAMR model and which of the 4Cs are included. And before we get started, just a quick note on the SAMR model. As you probably have seen in the review materials before this, before you did this activity, the SAMR model is not, lines in the sand that you can't cross. There's a lot of gray area. There's things that go that might for you go one way and for someone else go a different way. So as I go through this, you're going to see some gray area on either sides of where we think it lands. And that's okay. There's really not a wrong answer. We really want you to be thinking about how the technology is being used, and that right there is a win right off the bat. Okay, so starting off with the geometry unit, in groups of 5 or 6, students created review guides for a unit or semester overview for a big exam, and end of the unit or end of the term exam. Basically, they are working together. They're creating some screencasts, outlining vocabulary. Now, if we look at where it falls on the SAMR level, really a solid modification with potentially, some of you may have put augmentation, some of you may have put redefinition. The group work is really what kind of pushes it above the modification, as well as creating the site, creating the Google site where they're publishing what they're doing, and finally the screencasts. So if it was just pictures on how to do a problem, that's not, that probably would have kept it at augmentation. By throwing in screencasts, you really kind of push it above kind of the line, the transformational line, and potentially, pushing it into redefinition as well. As far as the 4Cs are concerned, certainly communication and collaboration, creativity and critical thinking to some extent, depending upon, how much they put into making the website look good. The critical thinking part is how much do they have to figure out how to do the problems, or if they already know how to do the problems, maybe there is not as much critical thinking, but certainly communication and collaboration. And this lesson as a whole is not necessarily groundbreaking or brand new, but it is a new way of packaging it and presenting it, and adding the screencast definitely adds a different element there. Lesson number 2 is the Roman Empire. So this is where you have the Google My Maps that is shared with the entire group. They put at least 10 markers on there, looking at the geography of the Roman Empire and see what may have, been a difficult geographic terrain for the Roman Empire to defend or to maintain control over. And then they find out they do some critical thinking to figure out what were the most important areas or more important elements that helped cause ultimately their decline. So as far as the SAMR model is concerned, it really falls into modification. Again, some people put augmentation. A lot of this could have been done with paper, although I don't think you can get as intricate with paper as far as if you had a paper map, even if you had an atlas, because with Google Maps you can zoom in and zoom out, and you can tour the world, look for specific coordinates or specific spots that it's not the same with a paper atlas. Redefinition, some people think it's redefinition because it is collaborative. You do have the power of Google Maps, which is so powerful, and the collaborative piece as well. Now, as far as the 4Cs, certainly has collaboration. They're working together. Critical thinking, the assignment itself has critical thinking elements that is drawing from the access to the data, which the data in this case is the maps. So them being able to go in and look at the maps closely and figure out which is the top three geographic challenges, and then at the end creating the Google presentation that outlines their findings and with the inferences about how geography impacted the Roman Empire. Some good critical thinking there. Communication by creating the presentation, of course, the group dynamics as well. Lesson number 3 is the Lit Circle poster. So here they take create a movie poster for a book they're reading, and it could include some specific information. As far as the SAMR level is concerned, this is a pretty solid augmentation. Sometimes people do say substitution because it is something that you could do on paper. I believe that it's augmentation because on paper you have only the materials that are there, including your pencil, your pen, your markers, whatever happen to have. Maybe you're using magazines to cut out pictures and all that. With Google Drawing, you have access to the web, so you have any picture you could possibly imagine. You also have a lot of precise tools that allow even the people who don't have necessarily the great technical drawing skills to create something nice, and you can create iterations and play with it and all that over a period of time. As far as the 4Cs are concerned, really includes all of them. Maybe creativity certainly at the top. Critical thinking might be the lowest as far as its integration into this project, because unless it's built in a little bit more, you're more representing the main ideas, and you're just finding some quotes and some images, but that piece may not be as strong as the other three. That being said, this is not a bad project. It's actually a great one that would probably only take a couple days and let kids creatively kind of reimagine what the movie might look like, including picking what stars might be in it, that type of thing. Lesson 4, outdoor observations. So this is one where students collect information and at the end create a Google presentation that outlines their findings. Now, as far as the 4Cs are concerned, this one kind of follows pretty solid augmentation. The technology is allowing them to collect their data in a more efficient way, make graphs in a more efficient way, present their information in a more efficient way, but doesn't necessarily do things dramatically differently as it stands than what they might have done before this. And this is a type of project that science teachers have been doing for years, well before access to computers and spreadsheets, and so kind of falls in augmentation as far as we're concerned. As far as the 4Cs are concerned, communication, collaboration, critical thinking. I would say, again, this is not blowing it out of the water, but it is a type of activity that teachers have done for a long time. Certainly there might be ways to increase it to modification or bring out the critical thinking and collaboration and communication to a different level. But as it stands, this is where we think it fits. The last one is Spanish, so conversational Spanish, where students from an American classroom interface with students from a Latin American classroom and talk about different topics as decided by the teacher or the group. It doesn't really go into that much detail. And this one is redefinition, because if you think about it, it's one thing having conversations with people who speak a different language. So you may have Spanish speakers at your school, and your Spanish students, who are in a traditional Spanish class, could certainly have a conversation with those students. But being able to interface with someone who is geographically not next to you, and ideally on a regular basis, so this wouldn't be just a one-time thing. It would be doing things over weeks or months, where you can build a relationship. You can talk about things that you talked about the week before, and it can be an ongoing part of the class. Not possible without the technology, Google Hangouts, Skype, whatever technology you happen to use with this. Certainly on the 4Cs side, communication is high, collaboration with the other person, critical thinking. You could probably bring this where they're asking each other questions, and you have to come up with the questions, you have to come up with the topics. So there's some great potential there to connect with other classrooms. All right, so a couple key points I wanted to bring up as we wrap up this screencast is you want to thoughtfully and deliberately use the technology tools. You don't want to randomly do it. You want to do it with substance. You want to make sure you're using them in a way that is most efficient for the tools. On the SAMR model, substitution and augmentation are where a lot of instruction is going to take place. This isn't bad. And sometimes people say, oh, I'm below the line, or no, using the technology to enhance the learning in some capacity is good. What we will say is you should get to modification and redefinition when you can, and try and get there once a unit, once a semester, a few times a year, so your students can take advantage of these tools and use them beyond what you might have been able to do without the technology. All right, thank you for watching, and enjoy your day.